All right. I think we are going to start with this today's conversation. Welcome everyone to today's stem cells conversation. My name is Rita Leituguinho, and I'll be moderating today's conversation about stem cells, which will be having an interesting spin. So before we start, I just would like to say the acknowledgement of country. I'd like to begin by acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I meet with you today, the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend that respect to the traditional owners of the land of which we all meet today, and pay my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people here today. I would like to ask you all to mute your microphones, which should be done automatically. But if you unmute yourself accidentally, just make sure you mute it again. So let's begin. Today we'll be hearing from Associate Professor Kim-Anh Lê Cao, lab head at Melbourne Integrative Genomics and the School of Mathematics and Statistics. Kim-Anh will be sharing an insight into her journey to Antarctica as a member of the Homeward Bound. So Kim-Anh, you have the floor.
Thank you, and thanks all for joining. I assume you can see my slide and hear me okay? No? Yes, okay. So I start first, I think, giving you a bit of background about where I'm coming from. So I spent a lot of my teenage years, so I was born in France, but I spent a lot of my teenage years in Réunion Island, which is a French department in the Indian Ocean. And it's been declared as a UNESCO World Heritage. And I think the years I've spent there, you know, the beauty of the landscapes really have defined who I am today. So to our ECR, I would like to say that, you know, career is usually not a straight path. And in my case, I had to navigate through academia, industry, and I was mostly driven by the places I've been to and also the people I've met. So I started an engineering diploma degree or diploma. It's a 5-year diploma in France. In France, the engineering schools are more prestigious than the university schools. But then I did a 1-year abroad, and I decided that being an engineer in an industry was probably not what I wanted to do. And so I did a PhD in statistics and computational biology. Straight after my PhD, I did a postdoc or moved to Brisbane at UQ, and didn't stay there for long, and then went to work in a bioinformatics platform at UQ as a consultant. And this is where I met Christine Wells. And since then, we've been collaborating together. I was then hired as a group leader in UQ Diamantina Institute, and there I met a lot of mentors, and this is just to highlight the importance of mentors to actually push your career. And then finally, about 3 years ago, I moved to Melbourne now, and I'm working at UniMelb. And to finish off, I ended up last year in Antarctica, and so this is mainly what I'm going to talk about today. But first, a quote that I think describes me best. The best thing about being a statistician is that you get to play in everyone's backyard. So my work is at the interface between statistics, mathematics, and modern biology. So as you know, in modern biology, we generate large amounts of data from the same biological material. So those data can be, you know, looking at the expression of genes, so profiling genes, proteins, metabolites, microorganisms, clinical parameters, big data on the same samples. And so my lab works on developing statistical methods to integrate those data and make sense of it. And we then apply our methods to a wide range of fields, from fundamental biology to microbiome to disease and health, and also ecology. And I think the methods we've developed have really been disseminated and enabled through a software. So this is an R package called Mixomics that we developed in my team. And, you know, when I see this slide, I realize how I have built those little building blocks during my career so that I could maximize, you know, on my statistical background, but also, you know, my capacity to build collaborations, but also to design software for the community. So just to give you an example of the kind of research we do, we're looking for what we call multi-omic signatures. So basically a set of features that can describe a biological system. So this is an example of the study we did where we sampled a small amount of blood in newborns, and then we could profile these samples with different omics technologies. So what people do is usually they look at those different layers of data here individually. They try to identify the genes that are differentially expressed and that may explain the first week of life in those newborns. And then they look at the correlation between those features and try to extract some biological meaning out of this. Our approach is a bit different because we integrate the data from the start and then try to identify, you know, the correlated structure between those data sets. And what we find is by doing it that way, we're able to, you know, make more sense of very complex biological systems from a biological perspective. The other type of, so this is research where we look at data sets that are measured on the same samples. But the other type of research I do, and this is with Christine Wells, is we're looking at independent samples that have been measured into different labs using different platforms. So this has started back at UQ with our postdoc, Florian. We looked at how we could develop a sort of predictive tool that would tell us whether a cell is a mesenchymal stromal cell. And since I've been at University of Melbourne, we're now looking at how we can, you know, integrate different types of platforms for microarray and RNA-seq. So those are bulk data sets, as well as combining also single cell RNA-seq data on those data sets. So this is just to give you a very global overview of the kind of project we're doing at the moment. But I come now to the bulk of this presentation, which is about Homeward. It's a leadership program, and it has the vision to build a network of 1,000 women. So in 10 years. So it selects about 100 women per year. So I did this last year. So it's a 12-month online program. Then we spent 3 days on the ground in Ushuaia, which is at the southern tip of South America. And then 18 days on the ship. So on that ship, we had 99 women in STEM from 33 countries. We had 12 faculty members. They were our teachers during those 18 days. And then they were also there was a crew from the ship, so 10 expedition crew and also the crew. So before I start about, you know, how the type of learnings and what we did on the ship, I'd like to show you a very short movie from one of my Homeward Bound sister, Monika. That's going to summarize a little bit what we did every day. So this video was made at the start of the voyage. Okay. So what did we do during this trip? So I just compiled a few of the many pictures I had on my computer. So this is, for example, Musimbi Kanyoro. She was one of our eldest faculty member. She was the CEO and the president of the Global Fund for Women. She's been a member from the WHO. And here she's teaching us about leadership and diversity and inclusion. At the back here, these are called lifestyle inventory surveys. So those are 360-degree survey that we filmed along with our mentees, our peers, and our mentors. And that gives us an overview of the type of leadership we have, where the areas where we're very good at and the areas where we need improvement. So we've been coached, to decipher and to make sense of this survey as well. And here, this was on the ground in Ushuaia, and basically collectively we brainstormed and we workshopped about what were the key characteristics of a good leader. For example, a good leader would instill trust, is very good at, establishing long-term collaborations, is inclusive, and also acts with a legacy in mind. And, these kind of characteristics, I think, really exemplify what we've been seeing today during this crisis. Some leaders in some countries were very good at dealing with the crisis and instilling trust, and some didn't. So definitely, this kind of tools that we learned during this program, apply everywhere else. At the back here, this is a list of the group norms that we established before we embarked on the ship. And I thought that was very good to set up a very safe environment where we allowed ourselves to be authentic, but also vulnerable on the ship. So every day we had about 4 or 5 hours of content, sometimes more. And so here we learned about leadership in a holistic way. We learned about, effective collaboration, effective communication, having difficult conversations, improving our visibility, improving our science communication. We also workshopped about, our strategic plan, both personally and professionally. And I think it was very, insightful to see whether our personal life and our professional life was aligning with our core values. And those are the tools that we took back from the program and from the ship, and I have implemented some of them also in my research group. So why Antarctica? So this is a question we get a lot. So Antarctica, in our case, was considered as our 13th faculty member because it taught us so much. It represents peace, and this is because Antarctica is not a country. It doesn't belong to anyone. It has been signed by 54 parties, but it's not claimed. Antarctica represents science. It is dedicated to scientific research. There's a lot of geology, weather research going on there. There's a lot of research stations. There's about 4,000 scientists who live there in summer and about 1,000 who live there in winter. And Antarctica also represents collaborations because it is a very harsh environment. Okay, so we all need to collaborate. It doesn't matter where we're coming from. It's the latest wilderness on Earth, and so it's completely or almost untouched and pristine. And I think what I really enjoyed about going to Antarctica, you can see even the colors are just different from what we see, but humans have no say there. The wildlife is very happy to live without human, and also what we know is that Antarctica is the key to balance our ecosystem on the planet. The effect of climate change are really obvious. So if you do talk to people who've been to Antarctica several times, like, cruise ship, from the crew on the ship, they would say that within years, they do see the effect of climate change. So I think going there made us, give us a very strong commitment to the cause. But it also brought quite a bit of optimism. I think I was very pessimistic before, but being in a very safe environment with all these women from a diverse background also give you hope that you can make a difference for future generation. So what did we learn from this trip? The first is, I think, to adapt quickly. So the program is designed so you cannot set into any habit whatsoever. So we had to switch cabins and, roommates. We would never sit in the same seat during the lectures and so on. The schedule is quite fluid because it's weather dependent. It also a very confined environment, and that helps us also to create deep bonds and trust amongst ourselves. And this degree of being uncomfortable was good enough for us to increase our learning, I think. We learned about the science of Antarctica. We learned about the science of others because there are many women from a very diverse background and different career stage, from PhD up to retired. And I think we really benefited from this peer mentoring. I'm just very grateful to have had the chance to be there. It is a time where we could reflect on where we are, where we were, and what we wanted to do next. And so this is only the beginning, I think, of a very long leadership journey. I would say that we came back full of energy and aspiration, and then we kind of got hit back by the bushfire and the pandemic, and I think that trip really gave us the tools also to face this type of crisis. We are continuing to work on the collective level on different projects, building our Homeward network. And I think at the individual level, it gave me, more aspiration to be a better leader and to lead with authenticity. Through this pandemic, I think it's been a good, good reason for us to reflect on the world we're living in. And I think it brought both the worst and the best in humanity. And so I think as a collective, we really need to think what we want to do for next steps. That's it.
Awesome, thank you. That you stick right to the time. I was just on edge. No, well done, Kim-Anh. I guess it's now open for questions. You can raise your hand and I will see if you have a question. You can also share a question via the chat channel. And I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so that everyone can see. Maybe I'll start up with a question. If you could please stop sharing the screen. That's a really interesting project. I was wondering if there is anything like this, however, not as far away as Antarctica. Like it seems like an excellent opportunity to develop these core strengths. However, it seems like everyone should be doing this in their regular lifetime. Is there any way that we can access this that doesn't involve going all the way to Antarctica?
I think going to Antarctica is one of the points for many reasons. And one is, you are in a sort of retreat. You're in a confined retreat with a group of women. It's very rare to find it elsewhere for that amount of time too. So, it creates a strong commitment also from the group. Also, the vision of Homeward is also to create a better planet, really. And you need to see what is, pure wilderness to commit to that cause, I think. So this is why, although it sounds weird, to go there, I think it is really part of the program and the learning. Because of the degree of uncomfortable and the amount of material we had also.
Yeah. I think we have a question from Lizzie Mason. Lizzie, if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question. Lizzie?
I think Lizzie just made a comment, but I think Megan may have a question.
Oh, Megan, yes, you have the stage.
Thanks, Rita. So thanks, Kim-Anh. That was a fantastic presentation and so great to hear about your experience. I was just curious, you just mentioned there how awkward or uncomfortable it was at times. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more around, I suppose, what surprised you in this quite unusual environment? You know, what struck you in perhaps at a personal level about how you coped with being immersed in a very trying situation? And then I suppose the follow-on question is, and how is that going to impact, you know, your day-to-day management in your lab and in your work?
So I think it's an overwhelming experience. And it's a mixture of awe and gratitude and being overwhelmed. Okay, so the fact that you are confined with so many people around, for me was very overwhelming. I didn't actually realize how introverted I was until I was on the ship and thinking, oh my God, you know, how do we deal with all this noise and all this stuff, excitement going on? So I think that was for me one of the main challenge. But it's great to, you have to push yourself always. This is the best way to learn. We tend to always sit where we're comfortable, and that's never going to push us to the next step. So when I came back, I think from that trip, I realized that I could push myself way much further than I thought, and that we are actually flexible and more adaptable than we think. You know, dealing with the pandemic has been a great example where, yes, we can do it. Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty, but we can all do it. And so this is what also I'm bringing back, I think, to my lab is there are different tools. For example, on science communication that I've been working with my team. And also, you know, being able to instill, you know, little nuggets of the wisdom that we learned during that program, I think is useful. Also having a more, I think, inclusive way of dealing in my research and in my group is also something to come. We took home so many different tools and learnings from there. I think it's, yeah, it's not an opportunity you get often.
Thanks, Megan. I think it's great for you and also for the people around you. So it's well done on that. I think Vanta has a question. She's asking about the selection process. So if you can unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask the question to Kim-Anh. Vanta, are you there?
Oh, I am here. Thank you.
Perfect.
That was wonderful. I loved all your photographs and the like. I was wondering about, how are the 100 women selected, and how are women from all these different financial situations funded?
Yes, so this is a very hard entry level. So it's a competitive process. I think last year 400 women applied and only less than 100 were selected. You are selected based on, you know, your ability to collaborate, your ability to have a legacy mindset, these kind of things, your resilience. And you do have to self-fund, I think, about a third of the program. So that's about, you know, 26,000 Australian dollars. So it's not cheap, but again, for us, I mean, I was amazed to see how many women applied, and they had more uncertainty than I had in terms of finance, in terms of, you know, job security, and just went for it. And they managed to raise the money. And I think for me, it means that you can, you know, we did a lot of crowdfunding, and so it is possible. We are launching, trying to launch a few scholarships now for women from developing countries. And so we hope that it can, you know, encourage more women to apply. And of course, this year is going to be very special. At the moment, we don't really know if the current cohort is going to be on the ship, probably not at the end of this year, but maybe it's going to be delayed in the next years. But yes, this strong commitment also, is really important when you engage, because you're going to engage much better in the program.
Thanks, Vante. Would you, Kim-Anh, now I have the floor. Just as a personal question, would you recommend young early career researchers, even because I think for us this would be something really interesting to do. However, we are not at that stage yet. But even as early career researchers or whatever PhD students, this would be a wonderful opportunity to just develop personally. Would you recommend for early career research even, or early stage career, to apply or have a look at it even?
I think leadership starts when you're 1 year old, or maybe, as soon as you're born. This is where you're leading your life. This is how it starts. So thinking that leadership is only for senior people is wrong. There's so many ways you can influence people around you, and that's the definition of being a leader. There were about a third of the women with us who were doing a PhD, so very early career stage. And highly beneficial for them, I think, because it will push them. They will interact with more mid-career and senior women. And as I said, this mentoring that isn't formal, but across different career stages is also very important. So yes, definitely, it is not for mid-career and senior career. And for all our PhD students here, I would encourage you to do, to be part of similar initiatives anyway. I mean, they give you, the tools for later.
It's an excellent, that was exactly what I kind of wanted to hear, that leadership, that it comes from everywhere, and it's not something that you have to learn when you become a group leader or postdoc or whatever.
Something I wanted to say also is you do not need to have a group to be a leader, right? It's you can influence many people around you, and they're not your group. You're not their manager, or
yeah. I'm sure people around you and people around everyone that participated in that program would be very happy with it, because it transpires to other people as well. So well done on that, and very inspirational words from you. Now I think we might wrap up, and we are exactly at 11:30, so well done on sticking on time. Please, everyone, would you care to thank Kim-Anh again with me with an excellent presentation, a really interesting spin on these conversations, very inspirational, and I thank you so much for that.